I stood in our bedroom, motionless, as the pale morning light crept through the curtains, casting long shadows across the floor. In my hands, I held Isabel's silk scarf, soft, delicate, the kind of elegant accessory she would wear to a high-end hospital fundraiser or an evening out with her colleagues. But at that moment, it felt like a dagger twisting deep in my gut. The scent hit me first, unmistakable and clinging to the fabric like an unwelcome presence, musky cologne, strong foreign. Not mine. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself it was nothing. Maybe she had hugged a coworker at the hospital, someone with terrible taste in aftershave. That was reasonable, wasn't it? But then my eyes caught something else. A lipstick stain. Bold. Scarlet. Smeared along the edge of the scarf. A shade Isabel never wore. My stomach dropped. My hands tightened around the silk as a cold wave of realization washed over me. I stared at it, my thoughts racing, my body frozen in place. 13 years of marriage, 2 children, a life carefully built together. And this was how it all began to unravel. Not in some explosive confrontation, not with a confession laced in regret, but in a quiet, gut-wrenching moment of truth that I could no longer ignore. Looking back, the warning signs had been there for months. Her late nights at the hospital had become routine. Her explanations vague. Extra shifts, paperwork piling up, exhaustion etched into her features. I hadn't questioned her. Why would I? Isabel was a pediatrician, a woman dedicated to saving children's lives. And me? I was buried in my own work as a financial consultant, making sure our life in Ridgewood Heights remained comfortable. We had everything: a spacious house with a wraparound porch, Cole and Ava playing in the backyard, a marriage that, from the outside, appeared strong. But that scarf shattered the illusion. I dropped it onto the dresser, exhaling sharply, only to have my gaze land on something else, my shirt. The one she had thrown on last night after spilling wine on her dress. It hung over the chair, carelessly draped. I lifted it with shaking hands. Another lipstick stain. The same vivid red. My chest tightened. This wasn't just an affair. It wasn't a fleeting lapse in judgment. She was leaving clues, as if daring me to find them. As if she wanted me to know. I don't know how long I stood there, gripping the fabric, my thoughts spiraling in a chaotic mess. Down the hall, the kids were still asleep. Cole, 11, probably dreaming about baseball, and Ava, 8, curled up with the stuffed bunny she refused to part with. The house was silent, but inside my head, there was nothing but noise. How long had this been going on? Who was he? A doctor she worked with? A patient's father? My mind conjured images of her with someone else, smiling, laughing, fingers brushing against his arm while I was home making dinner for our kids, believing in a life that was no longer ours. My throat burned with the weight of it all. I wanted to storm upstairs, wake her, demand the truth. But I didn't. Instead, I carefully placed the shirt back, smoothing out the wrinkles as if nothing had changed. Then I walked downstairs and made coffee, my hands steady even as my world crumbled. The realization settled in like a slow, creeping poison. Isabel hadn't just betrayed me. She had shattered the foundation of us. And worse, she wasn't even trying to hide it. She wanted me to see. She wanted me to do something about it. The rest of the morning blurred. Isabel came downstairs, her damp hair falling over her shoulders, her expression as serene as ever. She smiled, wrapping her fingers around her coffee cup. "Morning, Adam," she said, her voice light, effortless. As if nothing had changed. I nodded, murmuring a response, but my eyes flickered to her neck. Did the scent of that cologne still linger on her skin? Did she even care if I noticed? She kissed the kids goodbye, grabbed her bags, and walked out the door. I stood at the kitchen window, watching her car disappear down the street, my grip tightening around the sink. 13 years. 2 kids. A life I thought belonged to both of us. And now this. I didn't know what my next move would be, but one thing was certain. I wasn't going to be played for a fool. Not anymore. That scarf. That lipstick. They weren't just evidence. They were the beginning of something I couldn't overlook. Something that had the power to change everything I thought I knew about my wife, my family, and even myself. And then came the final blow. He still thinks we're just going through a rough patch. Sad guy. Marcus responded. At least he makes a great babysitter while you're with me. The words hit like a punch to the gut. The air left my lungs. All this time, I had been holding on to hope, onto denial, onto the belief that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. But I wasn't. I was just the fool who had taken too long to see it. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Each message was a blade, carving deep into 13 years of trust, slicing away everything I thought I knew about my wife. Isabel wasn't just unfaithful, she was mocking me, laughing behind my back, reducing me to nothing more than an oblivious fool. Poor guy. That's what she called me. The same man who had stayed up with her through sleepless nights in med school, who had held her hand through the pain of childbirth, who had built his entire world alongside hers. And now I was nothing but a joke. My grip on the phone tightened, my knuckles aching. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to hurl it against the wall, watch it shatter just like everything else. But I didn't. Instead, I forced my breathing to steady, placed the phone back exactly where I had found it, and turned to the coffee maker. My hands were steady, my face blank, but inside I was unraveling. Upstairs, the shower shut off. Floorboards creaked under Isabel's steps. A few minutes later, she walked into the kitchen, wrapped in a robe, her damp hair cascading over her shoulders. "Morning," she said casually, reaching for her mug as if this were just any other day. I handed her the coffee. "Morning." She smiled, too quickly, too easily. The kind of polite grin you give a stranger in passing. I studied her, searching for something: guilt, hesitation, regret. Anything. But there was nothing. She was calm, collected, as if she hadn't spent months deceiving me. I wanted to yell, to demand answers. Who the hell is Marcus? How long has this been going on? But I said nothing. I simply stood there, sipping my coffee, letting the silence stretch between us. When she kissed me goodbye, it was faint, barely there, a ghost of what it used to be. And then she walked out the door. I waited until her car disappeared down the driveway before heading into the bathroom. The moment I locked the door behind me, the rage took over. My fist slammed into the mirror. Glass shattered on impact, shards raining down into the sink. My knuckles split open, blood seeping from the wounds, but I didn't feel a thing. Pain was nothing compared to the fury burning inside me. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I dropped the kids off at school, went to the office, sat at my desk, and stared blankly at my computer screen. Figures, charts, investment portfolios. All of it blurred together. Nothing registered. My mind was trapped in those messages, those damning words that changed everything. "When are you telling him?" She was planning to leave me. And Marcus knew. I replayed every interaction I had ever had with him. The handshake at hospital events, the polite conversations. Had he been laughing at me even then? And Isabel. How long had she been sneaking away to be with him? The Lakehurst mansion. She had told me it was a work retreat last month. I had believed her. That same weekend, I had taken Cole and Ava to the park, played with them, tucked them into bed. Meanwhile, she had been with him. My chest tightened, a brutal mix of anger and humiliation. I had trusted her completely, and they had turned me into a fool. By the time I got home, the kids were finishing their homework. I moved through the motions on autopilot, making dinner, chicken and rice, their favorite. Isabel texted late. Hospital stuff. I didn't react. Once the kids were asleep, I sat alone in the dimly lit living room, letting the weight of it all settle in. She wasn't just having an affair. She was done with me. With us. And she had been stringing me along, waiting for the right moment to walk away. The messages proved it. Months of deceit, unraveling piece by piece, while I held everything together. The scarf. The lipstick. The cologne. None of it had been an accident. She had left them like breadcrumbs, daring me to follow. Maybe she wanted me to explode, to lash out, to become the villain so she could walk away without guilt. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Not yet. I would stay quiet. Observe. Plan my next move. Because if Isabel thought she could shatter me and walk away smiling, she was dead wrong.